iPads, laptops, TVs and much more. So don't miss out. And with 67 stores nationwide, there's a local expert near you. Find yours at expert.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now, welcome back. Ray Houghton's with us. Evening, Ray.
Evening to you.
What did you make of the game last night then?
Well, it was a tough watch, wasn't it, to be brutally honest. After the results recently, I think everyone was anticipating that Ireland would have probably came out and taken the game to Denmark a little bit more. Certainly tried to pressurise them higher up the field. I think it was fairly evident quite early on. It was a rearguard action once again, just getting numbers behind the ball and trying to frustrate them. Yeah,
and a rearguard action continuously is almost the point as well. I mean, fair enough the first 5-10 minutes, but it seemed to be pretty much the plan for the 90.
Yeah, it looked that way. I mean, it was very similar to, when we played them in the playoffs, wasn't it, the first leg, where, certainly sitting on the 18-yard box and getting everyone behind the ball. The problem with that is when you win it, you've got nowhere to go because everyone's so close together. You're just hitting it downfield to no one. Young O'Brien was coming back to help out. He thinks he's doing his best by doing that. But when you win the ball, the back three and the wing backs have got no one to play the ball to. You've got to try and play short. They're not happy doing that because no one's looking to get on the ball. And all it was like constantly giving the ball back to Denmark. Yeah.
Johnny Walters was on Sky Sports. I don't know if you were watching there, and he was making the point afterwards. He was saying there were plenty of times when the Denmark keeper had the ball and we just ran back into our own half. I don't see the point in that. He said if they played out to the centre half and then everyone presses, what are they going to do? They've got three big centre halves. They're going to kick it long. 9 times out of 10, you're going to win the ball. Well, it doesn't sound like rocket science to anyone, and certainly seems like something which should have been tried in patches of the game, if not constantly. And yet it never seemed to. And you just wonder, what's the game plan? What's the thinking? Does it lie with management? Does it lie with players? It's very hard to figure out who's suggesting what and why.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think basically, though, if you were to look at the way we lined up, normally when you play with three centre-halves in the modern game, now you play 3-4-3. So you've got two players on either wing who are a bit higher up the field. Then that's much easier to contain the opposition, and they can't play out because you've got people that can go and close them down. But the way that Ireland lined up last night, it looked like it was a 3-5-1-1, if you like, with O'Dowd getting a little bit closer to O'Brien, but it didn't work that way. And listen, and John's right, if you're going to go and press, you have to do it as a collective. But if your confidence isn't high, and that's the problem with the lads at the minute, because when I watched the game last night, I didn't sit there watching thinking they're not running around. I didn't think that for one moment. I thought, they were trying to get across the pitch, they were trying to work hard to put pressure on them. But when your confidence is low, what you'll find is you get fewer and fewer options. And when you're on the ball, you need people to make angles to receive it so you can play with your little 1-2s or get people running in behind so they know where you're going to run and where you're going to play the ball into. It didn't look like that last night. It did look a fragmented performance. We can go back to the 5-1, and I think that's where a lot of people will question the direction from management. When we lost to Denmark in the playoff second leg at the Aviva, and the way that they sort of struggled at half-time to make any impact, they tried to change it around and it didn't work. So I think a lot of people will come back to that. And if you look at the form over 2018, it's been poor, isn't it? There's one victory against the USA in the 9 games that we've played. Last 4 games, we've not scored. Even last night, we had 3 attempts at goal, none on target. So all these things, when you factor in, works against the way we're trying to play at the moment.
Ray, it's Dave here. You mentioned the confidence there. Is there a possibility that, and there is a perception, as we know out there, that maybe Martin O'Neill doesn't prepare this team as well as they could be prepared, but is there a possibility that they have spent the week working on the press, working on trying to make angles for each other, working and try and keep the ball a little bit better? And while the players may be able to show Martin they're capable of doing that on the training pitch, so low is their confidence and maybe so risk averse are they when the actual games kick off that all that can go out the window very quickly and there isn't an awful lot that the management can do about it.
Well, I tend to agree with that, Dave. I've got to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen plenty of brilliant players on the training pitch, because there's no pressure. You can get on the ball, your teammates aren't going to come and put you under any pressure, so you can get on the ball and you look brilliant. I mean, when you need courage, it's a strong word in football. There's 2 types of courage. Courage when you're flying into challenges, you put your body on the line when shots are coming. And the other courage is to get on the ball and not to be afraid to make mistakes. And some of the players, who I'll give you the likes of Robbie Brady. I think that was Robbie's first full start, wasn't it, last night, international level for the year. And I'm right, Robbie. I think he's got a lot of qualities. But I've seen him kicking the ball out of play from 5 yards, trying to pick out a teammate kicking the ball out of play. And I'm thinking, looking at him, going, what's the matter with him? Because that's unlike him. I've seen him play many times, and he's got good technical ability. But when he does that, and I'm thinking, there's something wrong. There's something not quite right. What is it? And it just isn't. The management, maybe saying to the players, you need to get on the ball. This has to come down to themselves as individuals. When you're having a bad time, you've got to forget about what the crowd are saying. You have to forget about the headlines that might be written about you. You just got to get on with it and say, right, that was a mistake. I'm going to rectify it next time I get on the ball.
And so do you think that 11 that was picked last night by Martin was him being cognizant of the fact that their confidence was on the floor, and that while, yes, you're going to draw some criticism for failing to score again and failing to even look like scoring, the team was purpose-built to get out of 2018 with some kind of a result and maybe just stave the Wolves off for another few months before we get into March? That if they had gone out and tried to play a bit, tried to create some openings, maybe leave two up front, give real licence to those supposed wing-backs to get into the opponent's half of the field, but you end up losing 3-1, then the knives really would have been out.
Yeah, well, that's one of the problems you've got, isn't it, Dave? You can go in there with the best of intentions, say, let's play open and attractive football, and look how good we can be, and then you end up losing the game 3 or 4, and then as you quite rightly point out, everyone's on your back and they want you out. So it is one of them catch-22 situations that you're in as a manager. One thing you want to do is make sure you're not well beaten. The other, of course, you want to play as well as you can, and everyone's trying to spin a positive on it, from the players, the management. There was some better signs. Going forward there wasn't. That is where we've struggled for quite a while now, is that guile in the midfield area. Players that can open themselves up, that can see a pass, that are willing to play a forward pass. They're not worried about giving the ball away in advanced positions. They're going to try and play the right ball at the right time. And that's something that's sadly missing at the moment. It's something that we have to work on, because we've proven in the last 4 games that we only conceded 1 goal against Wales. We've had 3 shutouts. All right, we can defend. We can defend to a certain degree, even though we did give up 26 chances last night. And let's not forget that, and all the good defending that we did and all the numbers we had behind the ball, Denmark still had 26 shots at goal. There was plenty of good blocks went in, but there's some certainly really bad finishing. Jorgensen in particular, when he hit the post from about 5 or 6 yards, when they had the old goal team, I mean, that could have been a different scoreline. So that's what we have to look at the overall picture, what's going on. Technical ability, because I'm looking at Højbjerg last night, I'm looking at Sean in midfield. They're getting on the ball. They find it very easy to get on the ball under no pressure and play forward passing. And I'm looking at our midfield, and they're struggling to get a kick of the ball. And you have to question why that is. I think that they've 3 times as many passes as we did. I think it was 700 odd to 200 odd. I mean, over the course of 90 minutes, that's an awful lot for one team to have ahead of the other.
Accepting everything you're saying about personal responsibility, the other side of the coin is the management. And there are some things we know about management. For instance, we know that Cyrus Christie, on the day that he made his first appearance in an Irish midfield, when the team was named about an hour and a half before kick-off, assumed he was playing at left back. And that is a symptom of the level of preparation that's going into things. And Gary Breen was on last night. He doesn't like what he hears about what goes on the training ground. He doesn't like what he sees. He doesn't think it looks like a well-drilled team. There's lots of chopping and changing. And so he made the argument last night that one of the real root causes of the lack of confidence is that these players, who so often at their clubs go out with a bit of a plan and consistency of selection, they are going out into very difficult scenarios. International football, you know how difficult it is, without a real plan, without consistency, without proper preparation, and actually nothing would drain you of confidence more quickly than that. And that lies firmly at the feet of the management, and I think that is people's big worry and complaint of the current management setup.
Well, one thing I would say on that, Joe, is, do you know what? It doesn't stop you getting on the ball. Even if you've got, I mean, Jack wasn't one of them for plans. I've got to be honest with you. He'd give you a sort of a roundabout or an indication of what he'd want from me. But we had 11 players on the pitch who were organising all the time. Who were getting on to each other. If someone wasn't closing down, I was with Tony Cascarini the other night, and he said, I never knew anyone that moaned as much as me. Well, I know Mick McCarthy used to moan at me. I used to moan at Mick and the others. And everyone all became involved in that as well. So it's one thing to say there's not a plan in place. And I understand that to a certain degree, and maybe the training ground, there's certain things that's not going on that maybe should go on. But at the end of the day, once you cross the line as a player, you've got to think for yourself. You can't have managers getting you into position every second of every minute of every game. At some stage, you've got to stand up for yourself and have a football intelligence about you to know where you should be and where you should be running to and the areas where you can affect the game. And you can't be reliant on, oh, the manager's told me to do this. You've got to go in there and think for yourself.
So what's the need for a manager at all then, Ray?
Well, the reason for a manager is to take pressure off, is to give you guidance at times, is to see things on the pitch because you're playing and to help you on the sidelines to get into positions at times that you should be getting into. Just little crumbs have come. I played with loads of managers, lots of managers who didn't give me a lot of advice when I'm playing on the pitch. All the players did that. We did it as a collective. Then I was talking to Craig Johnson a few months ago, and he was talking about when we played at Liverpool, the biggest club with the best team at that particular time. And what did we do? We managed it in the changing room. If someone wasn't doing the job, the players told the player who wasn't doing it that he wasn't doing the right things.
But isn't
that full of world-class players?
Ray, isn't that the point, though? I mean, me and Dave could manage you lot and you'd probably be okay. You were world-class players, you were brilliant players, it was a golden Irish generation. These players are not, and they would admit as much, and they probably play with more, they're probably used, the game has changed a little bit, they are probably used to a bit more organisation and drills going on in the training ground at their clubs. So what you say is absolutely right in a perfect world, but in reality I wonder if these players need a bit more. Maybe it comes down to a more simple question. Are we getting the best out of these players?
Well, that's the point. And of course at the moment we're not, because of the performances that they're giving at the moment. But I would come back to the technical side of it, the technical ability and how to receive a ball. Why is it Højbjerg knows how to receive a ball? Why is it that's shown in midfield two lads, one's playing for Ajax, the other one's playing at Southampton? Why is it they can make angles to receive it and our boys are not doing that? Is that down to the management not telling them? Is it down to them not confident enough to get in position to do it? Or are they lacking that technical ability? So there's something within that, them three things I've just said. There's something within that is going to be the answer and the reasons why it's not happening. The easy thing to say, and I played over 700 games in a variety of internationally, domestically. I never came off once after playing badly, blaming the manager. It's down to me, because whatever on the night, my touch wasn't right, I wasn't in the right positions, my frame of mind wasn't, whatever it may be, that was down to me. And that's how I assess my game. Now, it might be different, and you might be quite right about footballers today. It is a different scenario, and I get that, and I understand that. But at the same time, you know, when things aren't going well, you have to get as a collective. And I'll give you an example of that. Yeah. Look at England when they lost to Iceland. They were more worried about the headlines that was going to be written about them in 2016 because they were thinking everyone's going to say we're not very good, this, that, and the other. Now look where they are. Is that just down to the manager, or is it down to the players who have grown up and realised what they have to do in football matches to win games?
I think a lot of us might think it's down to the manager, actually.
Well, it could be, and you might be quite right. But the other thing you were saying, you're seeing players like Rashford taking responsibility. You're seeing Raheem Sterling taking responsibility. You've got younger players coming through. Where's the next generation of Irish players that are coming through? Well,
that's a wider discussion about, we're not doing enough at underage. I mean, we just have to talk about what O'Neill has at his disposal. And like you talk about midfielders not taking the ball at the right, their body shape being all wrong. And we see so often a midfielder taking it off a full back and giving it straight back to him and his back to play and everything. And you're kind of looking at Roy Keane on the bench thinking, why is this not being rectified fairly quickly? And people don't understand.
Yeah, well, then that's a very valid point, and I totally agree with that. But don't forget this either, boys. Is how long do they have them to work with them?
Yeah.
In comparison to the clubs, so the clubs have them, like 40 weeks of a year, maybe more, virtually every day. So what are they doing at the clubs to improve, to improve themselves as players? What are they doing at club level to do that on a daily basis to improve themselves? The international manager gets them 5-6 times a year. Maybe for 3 days. One of them days is probably a rest day because they played at the weekend. I don't know how much time they've got to work with them and get their style of football across to them and how much they're taking on board or how much they're doing on the training field. I'm not privy to that. I'm not there. I can't see it.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that between the management and the players, something has to, they have to change the dynamics, because at the moment we're not doing well enough. We're not look like we're going to win games. We don't look like we're going to score goals. So we have to rectify that.
And we have to acknowledge as well that the vast majority of these players are not playing regularly, starting regularly for the club. So their confidence is probably already shot a little bit by the time Martin O'Neill gets his clutches into them, which then begs the question again, Ray. like, unfortunately, it's some of the same stick that we've used to beat Martin with a few times, is this team selection so late in the day. Now, I know Trapattoni was accused of naming it too early, which tends to kind of take the sting out of training for those players who know no matter what they do in those subsequent days, they can't break into the team. We hear Michael O'Neill names his team very early, and he starts working with that level from the very beginning of the week. If you are playing with or managing a group of players who are low in confidence, and to our eyes at least there appears to be a lack of a very definitive game plan, isn't it even more important that the team is locked in early in the week and they're being drilled like Roy Hodgson would drill his players at Palace, like Jack Charlton drilled it into you guys, because he had to change the way you guys played and the way you thought. You were part of a Liverpool team that wanted to keep the ball on the deck and keep it moving. You came into an Ireland team that the midfield players saw the ball go over their head for the entire 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we had to get used to that fairly quickly, to be honest. I mean, there were certain things we weren't allowed, like we weren't allowed five-a-side matches either under Jack. And listen, you're coming up with perfectly clear and logical things about how we could try and make things better. Don't forget, when did they play Northern Ireland? Was it on the Thursday night?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Friday would have probably been a rest day, probably trained Saturday, probably trained Sunday, flew over to Denmark on the Monday, and the preparation was just see what I'm saying? You get 2 days. I mean, it sounds a lot, when you're saying about Thursday to Tuesday, it sounds a lot that you can get a lot of work in, but in truth, it's a bit of rest, recuperation for some. For others, you're trying to get them a little bit fitter, some training in their legs to get them prepared for the game as well. And then you might only have a couple of sessions to get across what you want. Listen, at the minute, the football team is an easy target because, if you look at sport in Ireland, it's been such a strong year, and on the back of Ireland beating New Zealand at the weekend in the rugby as well, and the euphoria, and rightly so for what was a magnificent performance. And then
I know, but one win in 11 would never be acceptable.
Sorry?
One win in 11 would never be acceptable, even if the rugby team were the Dolphins.
Listen. That's for the FAI to make decisions on that. What you don't want is to be so critical of the players now that, they start going into their shell, and they start thinking, is it worthwhile coming over if we're going to keep getting sick every game? We did go through a spell of that a few years ago, just before Trapattoni came in, and that's why we had to bring Giovanni in to get that winning mentality back, because the boys had lost it at that stage. We were finishing third and fourth in groups, and it wasn't nice to see, and the players were really struggling with real confidence. I don't think we're quite there yet, but certainly what we have to try and do is, obviously, we need to bring or try to find some players who are going to be more creative, and certainly who can find the back of the net, because that's the real struggle at the moment. It doesn't matter who we put up there. It doesn't look like they're going to get enough chances to score to give us a lead in games to defend well to win a match.
Ray, appreciate you coming on. Thanks a million.
No problem.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
This is a radio ad to tell you that if you're a small business and you go direct to Energia, you get a better deal. That's what we have to say, and we wanted to get straight to it. Because it pays to be direct. Call 1850 363 744 or go to energia.ie/business for a direct quote today.